livestream.com, Kingscrusher. Good evening, everyone on livestream and chess-based server. I thought we could go over some games from Gibraltar this week, some topical games, which I haven't yet covered on the YouTube channel. Okay, I hope that board is okay for livestream viewers. Board okay? Okay. Right, so I thought we could start with a topical game also from my point of view, from my repertoire. I've been getting quite interested in the Sicilian Grand Prix attack systems. So this was quite popularised in the UK by a player called David Rumans, who is a FIDE master. He played this with great success on the tournament circuits. And Nigel Short used it against Yifan Hou in the tiebreaker at Gibraltar. So let's have a look at that game first. So it was a rapid game, and Nigel Short playing white. Okay, so they both ended up, I think, with 8 points. They both won the tournament and got quite a lot of money. Well done to them. Yeah, I think Nigel Short was particularly pleased because he also did well last year. He came second to EventDate last year. So I repeat the very good performance again this time. So in this tiebreak, okay, let's have a look at this tiebreak game. E4 was played by Nigel. Okay, and Yifan responded with the Sicilian, which she had done very well with throughout the main event. Okay, and Nigel did play actually knight c3, so the Grand Prix system. After d6, he could have gone for a closed Sicilian with g3 and bishop g2, but instead he uses the Grand Prix attack system. So that's signified with f4, which actually I used in my club game last night. And I nearly won, but unfortunately I managed to blow it in towards move 35 for the first time control, to a draw though, not to a loss, which is one good thing. But anyway, before that I've used this system twice before in previous club games with 2 wins actually, so I'm pleased with this system. After g6 knight f3, bishop g7, Nigel doesn't choose bishop c4 though, which seems like a natural spot to eye sensitive f7, but modern kind of trends are investigating this bishop b5 check instead here, and Nigel chooses bishop b5. So I think there's a book by Garwin Jones on this system. So bishop b5, and black just interposed a knight actually, which might be a mistake. Maybe it's more flexible to play like bishop d7. Instead, knight c6 was played, and here Nigel decided to double black's pawns. So he played bishop takes c6 check, doubling the pawns, and now d3. And white's usual plan here is quite simple: castle, then later queen e1 to h4, f5, bishop h6, that sort of thing. Really dangerous stuff. That's the kind of stereotypical plan. So what happened in the game? Knight f6. Okay, now both sides castle. King h1, which gets the king outside of any potential dangers on this diagonal. Okay, rook b8. Now queen e1. So this queen maneuver is very powerful often, just targeting things like f5 and bishop h6 as mentioned before. Whoops, bishop h6. So okay, so knight d7, and while the queen's here actually it supports c3 from the glare of the bishop. So actually this next move, b3 was played, which means that c4 is stopped by these 2 pawns. If black wanted to play a c4 pawn sack, and this knight at the moment, it can be protected soon as well. Maybe bishop here is an idea, or stuff like that. But actually Yifan plays e5, temporarily blocking in the bishop actually. Remember, it's only a rapid game though. And white uses a kind of very interesting pawn sacrifice to try and get f5 control. A nice outpost on this semi-open file would be the f5 square. So this pawn sacrifice here seems to be very, very interesting, because also the queen is supporting, of course, h4 for a knight h4 to f5. So g takes, and now knight h4. Okay. And so this is nice pressure on f5, f4, which shuts down the bishop. But actually, you know, this g file is potentially dangerous. So g3. Okay, and now black plays bishop f6. And then the knight does go to that very nice square, knight f5. Okay. So the immediate threats might include taking, and rook g1. And then carrying on the attack. Also bishop h6 is later. Bishop h6 later once this pawn goes. So knight b6, and it's dangerous for black now. G takes. Bishop takes. And now here comes a surprising move. Maybe Nigel was a bit optimistic here. This looks like a major blunder, checking with engines. This next move, which was played, remember, it's only a rapid game though, for the title, for who gets the title of winning the Gibraltar, so tiebreak. F takes e5 was played. Now, can any of you spot a major issue with this move? So it looks really clever that both bishops are kind of attacked, but there's a major issue inherent with this move actually. So if I give you all 20 seconds, can you spot what black could have played here? Okay, yeah. Now black has a very clever move. In the game, bishop takes e5 was played. But actually black can aim for more, because there is a battery actually here. And bishop h4 would be attacking the queen. And then, a piece up. Whoops. That wasn't played. It wasn't played. This would be very, very bad for white. Very tricky. Indeed. I'm not sure it's immediately game over, but say queen h3, maybe just bishop g6 to cover the g file, and this is nice for black, piece up. So, but that was missed. Oh, hi Chess explains. We have the presence of a soon-to-be international master on live stream. So any points you want to make, I'll echo them as high priority, as well as other people's, of course. But okay, so bishop h4. Yeah, it was a bit lucky that Nigel black played bishop takes e5, which leaves white with a slight advantage again. So ignoring that huge blunder, we'll carry on. It was only a rapid game. So clearly Yifan Hou is not the best at rapid just yet. She's more interested in the long games maybe. So rook takes f5. Okay. So in fact there is a reason for playing rapid chess or blitz chess on servers, like this one and other servers, that if you ever sort of lead a big FIDE tournament and there's a rapid playoff, then maybe you can win the rapid playoff more easily if you played blitz chess all the time. But I don't know, maybe not, I don't know. So king h8, Nigel had sort of lost to Adams in last year's playoff, which was rapid against Adams. So I don't know, maybe he's been doing rapid practice. But bishop f4. So knight d7 reinforcing e5. Queen d2. Okay, so now the rook can also is free to come over here to attack on the G file. And okay, once this bishop is exchanged, we have got weaknesses to exploit. But Queen H4 looks dangerous a little bit for white as well, though. Now, if black gets a knight to E5, maybe Rook G8, maybe it's not so clear. So there's some counterplay to factor in here. How to squash black's counterplay. Rook F1 is played, clearly with the idea of targeting actually first F7, so across here. So Rook B8. Now Knight E2 was played, and the knight can come and hop to G3 and then maybe control F5 and evict the queen if the knight ever gets to F5. So in this position, Rook G8, offering a pawn sacrifice which looks quite dangerous. Why is this pawn hanging? Well, there's an idea to try and get to the black king to make the white king. So the pawn's taken anyway, daring to allow Queen H3. And now, actually, a very, very clever move for Rapid anyway. A very nice move to defend here, G2. I wonder if you can spot it. I hope you guys on the Play Chess server hide the score sheet. Can you spot white's next move to defend elegantly against this Queen G2 mate? It is actually quite clever. How do you defend, G2? Because you don't want to allow, say knight G3. There's Rook takes G3, isn't there? Whoops. There'll be Rook takes G3, and then you're on F1. Whoops. So you can't play knight G3. So guess what Nigel played here? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now, how do you defend G2? Okay, the very clever move, knight G1 is played. So defending laterally G2 with the queen, and also at the same time offering the rook. But now if queen takes F1, then there's bishop takes E5 check, and then take the queen. So that's the defense. Very nice. Knight G1, evicting this queen very safely. Okay, so, well, to G4. So, okay, to G4. And now, Nigel plays knight F3. So he's putting more pressure on E5 now. Okay. So pressure on E5. So if black recaptures, you can take with the knight now. So Queen H3 again. Attacking the rook again. Queen F2 is played now, protecting the rook. Bishop takes F4, rook takes F4. And here, white's getting a better position because now knight E5 is answerable with knight E5. So this knight's defending that critical E5 square. So Yifan tries rook G6 to try and double the rooks now. So they're still looking a little bit dangerous. But now also the knight can come now again to this F5 square. So knight H4 with tempo, knight F5, and now hitting D6, which is important. From D6 it will go to F7 maybe. So rook EG8 was played, sacrificing D6, but it's starting to be looking a bit desperate, this position. Knight E5, protecting F7 from the knight, but it's played anyway. Knight F7 check, knight takes, rook takes. So look at black's structure. White has 2 extra pawns now. 2 extra pawns. So rook 5 to G6, and now one pair of rooks is coming off. And it's all over. Check. And now rook G1. Nasty pin and win. There's no checks or anything. It's all covered. So that was nice how black's counterplay was destroyed, starting from knight g1. So and in the second game, Nigel drew. So that's how he got the title, the Gibraltar champion for this year. So let's have a look at this game again. So a Grand Prix attack against the Sicilian with bishop b5 check. And this is how David Rumans in the 70s used to play it. He used to take on c6. These are old ideas with new players playing them. So it's a bit, it's very dangerous for black here. And so, the first bit of counterplay is squashed, that if black's strategic play is c4, then this is actually, he's going to stop c4 soon. So b3. So that bishop is protecting by that. So e5, and now he goes for this sensitive f5 square with f5 temporary pawn sack. And then we saw this knight maneuver. So pawn sack and a blunder, a huge blunder here. So he should have played e takes f5, which is occupying, of course. He doesn't want really a pawn on f5. But he had to play that. This is a blunder, okay. So there was bishop h4 here. Okay, but bishop takes e5 was played instead. So bishop h4 was just attacking the queen. Okay. So rook takes f5, king h8. And now challenging e5, protecting e5. Queen d2, bringing the rook in now to g1. Queen h4, and it looks a bit dangerous. This coordination to get g2 or across here was extinguished now very soon, taking that pawn because of this beautiful move knight g1. So this is probably one of the key moves of the game, to put black on the back foot, because this maneuver is very powerful to get to d6 later, to f7. So queen g4, knight f3, queen h3, queen f2, protecting the rook. And this starts to be a bit desperate now for black after knight f5. It's very dangerous now. There's also a threat, by the way, of rook h4 trapping the queen, it seems. So this knight is supporting h4 as well, and it's locked out the queen on the diagonal. So actually, that's interesting. If rook h4 is possible here, was there a refutation of rook h4 here? Does anyone spot that? If rook h4 was played here, does that look strong to anyone? Rook h4, or is it my imagination? Has anyone got a... I know we should have covered this in the main analysis. Can anyone spot anything? Oh yes, queen g2. Okay, queen g2, of course. Okay, yep. Then I guess knight d6 is still good. Okay. Okay, so anyway, he just chose knight d6 instead. Okay, so knight e5, and we had a simple win anyway. So it started to get desperate. So here. So now let's look at some serious games now. So that was a rapid game with some clear blunders. But in the serious chess, far less blunders. So let's look at them next. So I'll put on 3 games. The structure now of this, what we're going to look at. We're going to pick 3 games. First from Nigel Short, from the long games. And then we're going to pick 3 games from Hou, and then we're going to pick 2 other games of great interest from Shirov and Berg, very dynamic players. So that will be the structure of what games we're going to look at next. So 3 games from Nigel Short. So Tal Baron, what a name. Tal as his first name. So Nigel Short was black, and he played the French defence, and he played actually after bishop g5. Last year he played just what caution I think would play bishop e7, and you know, bishop e7, and this is fairly solid stuff. You know, white could play this gambit. I'm not sure how sound it is. Otherwise, bishop e7, and you know, it carries on like that theoretically. But actually, there's another idea here. D takes e4, which I used to play a lot, the Burn variation. But now, actually, after bishop e7, it's a completely different dynamic to the game. So bishop takes f6, g takes, accepting double pawns, you know, potentially g file pressure, potentially, whoops, this bishop usually across this diagonal. Okay, so knight f3, but now a6. So this is very interesting. And given that Nigel Short's played a6, I might revisit this system myself for Blitz, because often in the past, I think the favoured move was b6. I think it was Morozevich that introduced a6. So what are the advantages of a6 over b6? Does anyone know? Sorry, that's a bit of an abstract question, and it's a really hard one. But what do you think the advantages are of a6 over b6 here? If you're going to put this bishop on the diagonal, this is the Morozevich line, a6. Well, I'll speculate that some advantages of this is you want to sort of inhibit c4, and so b5 is kind of accelerated, you know, queenside pressure as well. And you know, you're going to put your bishop across the diagonal to coordinate with a rook on g2, and you might also want knight d7 to b6. So you're putting pressure on these two squares more with a6. So if we look at b6 instead, you know, you might later want to play this, and it's slower to have to move this pawn again. So why not just get it over and done with? a6, very interesting move. Okay, so queen e2, and now this looks odd because usually the plan for white is bishop c4 now, and it's been discouraged. You know, bishop c4, queen e2, castles. That's the usual thing to b6. But here, I don't know, b5, you know, if there's no c4 now, this looks very attractive, this control of light squares. So queen e2 anyway, you know, seems to commit the bishop to a fianchetto now. Here, b5. So g3, bishop b7, bishop g2. And now knight d7. So we have a natural plan, it seems, here. So it's to strengthen the grip on the light squares. a4, targeting b5. And now, of course, black castles kingside. Okay. This knight will be hanging, you know, you can't take here because the knight. So castles, bishop d5. And there's also now a skewer threat to win the exchange. So the rook moves. b4. So that still discourages c4 because you can just take en passant. Okay, but it's played anyway. c4 is played anyway. b takes, b takes. Now f5. And now, how do we look at black's position? Black has the bishop pair, but obviously a lot of structural damage. You know, here and here and here. Isolated pawn, double pawns. But if we remember last year in Gibraltar, Nigel Short also played similar games with fragmented pawn structure, but great piece play. So, you know, a lot of these very aggressive dynamic players do kind of experiment, it seems, with double pawns. But we even saw a brilliant Iranian game recently with double pawns, played extremely dynamically by Iranians. So double pawns, you know, they're not necessarily bad, or isolated pawns. You know, are these weaknesses exploitable? It's difficult for white to exploit them in this position. And there's pressure across the centre now after bishop f6. That black, you know, this bishop might be dangerous in the future. If c4 is, you know, this diagonal is still going to be under pressure. But c4 was played anyway. Bishop b7. Okay, so rook b1 looks logical, attacking that bishop. Okay, rook b8. Queen e3, as though I think the major threat is like queen h5 and a knight g5 just on h7. So maybe black wants to play at some point bishop g7, But at the moment, you know, bishop g7 is an answer to queen h6. It's not a problem. c5, d5, and now rook e8. Okay. Bishop h3. And this looks kind of dangerous, as though bishop takes f5 might be a threat in the future. Okay. So queen c7 was played here. So black has a nice grip on the dark squares in this position. It looks as though, okay, you know, these bishops, what are they doing? Well, at least the dark square bishop looks pretty good here. How would you guys assess this position? Who would you prefer to play, white or black here? If I give you all 20 seconds to evaluate the position here, do you prefer white or black in this position? So 20 seconds, just an evaluation now of the position. Who would you prefer to play here? Would you like to play white or black? Okay. It's kind of difficult to assess, I think. Tritzessa says white. Pist says white. Actually, a lot of people on the Play Chess server are saying white. So does that mean you consider these as real weaknesses? Because that's a major thing, actually, to treat pawn structure issues. You know, are they really weaknesses or are they really exploitable? If white cannot exploit these double pawns or isolated pawns, they're not really weaknesses, are they? Possibly. Now, e5, as pointed out by Gorgona, is a strong point for black. There is knight, bishop, and queen, correct? So black has good dark square grip. Okay, it's a difficult position. Okay, but the evaluation has to be more than just looking at the shape of the pawn structure. So queen d3 was played, clearly preventing, you know, anything like this. This f5 will be a disaster for h7. So knight f8. Okay, knight f8, and it looks as though knight g6 will be a nice square to come to soon. Rook e3, rook bd8, x-raying the queen. Rook be1. And now there's a threat of bishop takes f5, takes, and rook takes e8. So this rook is under fire here. So it's moved, rook e7, protected by the bishop and the queen. Okay, against bishop takes f5, queen b1, rook d8, as though actually d takes is on the cards potentially. Queen d3, rook d8 again, queen e2, bit of toying around by Nigel, waiting. And finally, he doesn't repeat, he plays e takes d5. So he's really got a pawn structure wreck here. Queen takes f5, rook takes e3, takes back, queen d8, protecting the bishop, bishop f1, and now d4. And look at this bishop on the diagonal, very dangerous looking. e4, queen e7, and again black has a great grip on e5. Imagine knight g6, everything will be on e5. Strong point, e5, chasing away the bishop, bishop g7. But now, you know, this is also looking good. Knight e6 maybe. Queen d3, sorry, bishop d3. So tying down the knight to h7. Queen e6, queen g5, queen h6. Not minding the exchange of queens. This diagonal will be nice. Queen f5. Bishop c8, evicting the queen again. Now knight d7, threatening e5. So this looks like a great position for black now. Or is it? So queen h5 now, putting more pressure laterally against e5. Knight e4. Setting what seemed to be a trap. Knight e4 seems to hang a piece, and this is quite interesting. But Nigel has seen deeper than the trap setter. That actually the trapper becomes the trapped, because Nigel actually he takes on f3, and it looks as though surely actually check wins the queen. So check is played. But guess what Nigel played now? If I give you 20 seconds, can you guess black's move here, starting from now? Okay, I hope you spotted it. Queen takes f6, because look, this rook will be hanging. So takes, he's got enough pieces for the queen. King f2, seemingly still attacking, you know, here. But now knight takes f6. So there's quite a lot for the queen. And if queen d8, then there's rook e8, protected by the knight. So queen takes c5 was played. 3 pieces for the queen. Rook e8 to protect the bishop. King g2, and now the coordination of black pieces. Check. And this could have happened to me last night, because I lost 3 pieces for the queen, but I had a perpetual check, fortunately. And this looks like very horrible coordination now. And a huge passed pawn ready to run. So 3 pieces for the queen is adequate. It's more than adequate. d3, and it's really crushing this position. You can just imagine, well, c5 was played. Now rook e6 is actually threatening also, just checking the king, which can't escape. Check. And now also, you know, f5 will be dangerous as well. So king g4. But actually rook c6, just eliminating this pawn is also dangerous. And then just herding this one. And here actually white resigned. He felt the position was hopeless. So very dynamic play from Nigel with this line. Let's have a look in overview and summary. So the Bern variation of the French defence. D takes e4, allowing doubled pawns. So it's all about dynamic play. Play on the light squares. So basically, the 2 bishops got going pretty soon, with black having a good grip on the central e5 square for a large part of this game, and you know, provoking d5. Okay, there was a period it looks as though was this going to be a draw by repetition, but no, eventually Nigel played e takes f, e takes d5, and we have a position where it just looks better for black dynamically, even though, you know, the queen was harassed, and we have a seemingly, you know, horrible position. You know, a lot of pressure on e5 about to drop. You know, e5 is about to drop here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything's ganged up on e5. What can white do? So he tried this, seemingly a trap, but it didn't work. Queen takes f6, getting loads of pieces for the queen. So a fun game. Okay, let's have a look at another game from Nigel So okay, now Dariyov is an over 2700 player who Nigel Short seems to have a very good record against. He's definitely beaten him before, I think in the Queen's Gambit declined in one encounter that I remember. But here Nigel was playing white actually. So higher rated than Nigel, but Nigel's a more experienced Grandmaster. So we have a Roy Lopez with Mamedarov choosing e5. So Roy Lopez, standard stuff so far. Knight f6 after castles bishop e7. So a very often beaten track of the Roy Lopez. Now d6, so he's not going to play the Marshall Gambit later, but instead more quietly. And in fact this retreat, a retreat knight move, knight bd7, knight b8, so I think that's Breyer. Roy Lopez experts here. This retreat is the Breyer system, isn't it? Knight d7, maybe bishop b7, you know. Okay, later c5, that sort of plan. Okay, but instead of d4 actually, which is the usual, this quieter d3 is interesting. Keeps e4 more solid. So maybe still some standard kind of plans for white. Knight bd7, knight maneuvers, classical knight maneuver. But now he doesn't want to lose that bishop. He tucks it away. Okay, so bishop c2. Now he carries on with knight g3. So it's all pretty standard stuff. This pent-up energy of white's position, you know, delaying, you know, potential d4. So black plays bishop f8. Okay, so b4 knight e6, and now finally d4 here. Okay, ready to expand. g6, bishop d2, as though there might be an idea of queen here and bishop h6 maybe to get rid of this. Knight d7, bishop b3, and this is a really strange point in black's play, that the queen is used here for some reason. I guess white is threatening d5, because where is this knight going? Is it going to g7? So queen, sorry, it can go to f4 like in the game though. So maybe this is the point of black's next move, to put pressure on f4. He plays queen f6, so it puts pressure on the center and over here, but it seems to backfire, this plan. d5 is played anyway, encouraging knight f4, and then we have c4, and the problem is with the queen, this diagonal might be dangerous in the future. Knight b6, and Nigel, he's got a potential target on the c file, this c7, so he just plays rook c1, not minding giving up his light square bishop. So he gives up his light square bishop, and he's got a bit of pressure now on c7, and this bishop is still hemmed in by these pawns. So, you know, something like queen here, you know, you can imagine pressure being built up on c7 here. So rook ac8, and now pressure is built up. Queen c2, defending or not. Bishop e7, no. So what's the meaning of this? Well, let's see. Also, what would happen if black didn't play that? What about knight takes h3? You know, f3, wasn't that like a point? G takes, queen takes. Can anyone see a problem with this? I suspect it might have to do with bishop g5, with now a threat of rook c3. See, that cuts f6 from the queen, so the queen might be trapped here. Would everyone agree with that? So if you see a refutation of bishop g5, speak now, because I think the queen's trapped after bishop g5. So the whole point of queen f6, you know, for knight h3, it seems pointless for this f3. You know, Nigel's just counter-attacking on c7. He's ignoring this tactic. So bishop e7. And now white takes on f4 and plays knight e2. And all of a sudden, there's also knight d4 to c6. This poor bishop. Bishop d8, knight ed4. Rook b8. Queen a4. Okay. So has to protect that rook. Plays king f8. Now knight c6. Horrible. Bishop takes, rook takes. It's a passive position for this bishop. And the queen actually takes the opportunity to go down here. Queen b2. Which, okay, it attacks the pawn. Yeah. But it's just protected with a3. And the only way back out is this way. And funny enough, after f5, Nigel realizes that the queen might be in trouble here, and he plays e5. He's blocking the queen's exit back, so the queen's still in trouble here. I think, you know, he has to. He just realizes that maybe, you know, rook c2 is a lot of trouble, because where is the queen going? It's trapped again on b2. But I think there is a line where black doesn't lose the queen, but ends up being worse. Does anyone know what that line is to try and avoid the queen being trapped? I think d5 is a bit looser, so maybe queen a2 or something. Queen a2 is on d5, so it's not as clear cut as one could make out. But it is pretty bad, I think, this position. I think maybe rook d1, protecting d5. It's still got the threat of rook c2 trapping the queen. So anyway, after e5, in fact, there were no more moves in this game. Black actually resigned. Quite a quick win, 32 moves over someone over 2700. So black actually resigned here. So that was an unfortunate game for Mamedyarov. If he had any hopes of winning the tournament, this didn't help. Has anyone got any questions about this position after e5 that we should explore? Anyone got any brilliant way for black to get out of it? It looks pretty bad, doesn't it? Would you agree? This is looking like a bad position for the queen. It's a simple way to lose with the queen being trapped. If there's no questions, let's do a quick overview and summary of this game. It's resignable because well, actually, I have a question myself earlier, but let's go in review and summary. I wonder at one point why the pawn wasn't taken on c7. That's one question I have about this game. But Nigel just avoided all the complications. Let's just do a quick overview and summary to see what black was hoping for. Because wasn't c7 offered as a gambit in this game? If we go back here, well, first of all, there was this hope maybe that, you know, knight f4 takes h3 would be effective on f3. All right, I guess that was one hope. But what about this c7 pawn though? After bishop e7, you know, in this position, would many of us have, well, he took on f4, okay, but now, okay, bishop d8 was protecting that pawn immediately, okay, so black was passive. It seems black really didn't have much counterplay, because look, both his bishops sort of being crushed here at move 27. Chess Explained, would you agree that black has got a miserable position here, if you're still around? Does anyone think black has got any prospects here? It seems, you know, bishop d5 doesn't work because, you know, the knight's protecting the rook. Yeah, so even though he lost that light square bishop, this bishop is not good in this structure. This bishop is miserable on d8. So, you know, c7 is the classic thing in the King's Engine defense. You'd expect c7 torture if you played the King's Engine defense, where white plays the thematic c5, you know, sometimes. But, yeah, this seems to be without counterplay for black. And, you know, I remember in the past Nigel short games, he didn't give players much counterplay. Chess Explained writes, Nigel said in live stream that he didn't understand black's play at all. Yeah, so it just looked grim, this position, you know, for a 2700 plus player not to have counterplay, you know, that's odd. Okay, so you know, the French defence was better that Nigel Short played in the previous game, except the double pawns. Get some counterplay going. Yeah, don't have a miserable position like this, you see. Anyway, he made it look easy versus this 2700, and this queen was just trapped. I mean, this was just very, very sad that f5 e5 you know, looks you know, it looks to be trapping the queen. Okay, so okay, let's go on to another game. So that's a bit strange how, okay, so we'll look at another game. Okay, so Sasa Kirin is a regular at Gibraltar, another very, very strong player, and he played d4, okay, and Nigel played actually as though he was going to play a Nimzo Indian. Let's flip the board. So he starts off as though he's playing a Nimzo Indian, but now white plays g3. And I think Kasparov once said against g3 in some annotations against Korchnoi that actually playing c5 is actually quite effective if g3 is played, because you don't have to worry about, you know, very dangerous lines in the Benoni. So he's going for a Benoni structure. c5 dynamic. So again, you know, this is how, you know, you might expect Fischer to play in 1972. You know, Benoni dynamic pawn structures. So the problem here is not double pawns, but it's this d6 pawn usually in the Benoni. You know, this d6 is a losing weakness quite often, and flooding the centre. You know d6. You know, bishop f4 d6 is a major problem with the Benoni. So knight c3 g6, but black has dynamic trump cards. You know, e-file pressure, e5. 3-2 on the queen side. Okay. So, Chess Explained writes, if you want to win, c5 is the better try. Catalan is very hard to win as black. So yeah, he needed to win. So this was a great choice, very dynamic. Okay, so knight bd7. Okay, a4, h6. Okay, queen c2, queen e7, and okay, so black's got nice control on e5. He's not bothering with a6 at the moment until now. Rook a3, a6, just in case that knight might be dangerous. Knight d2, but also now, you know, this is the classic plan. So rook b8, and it's clamped down on with a5, and now this might try and discourage b5 because of the en passant, and you get this isolated pawn, but you get a bit of counterplay going, you know, coordination. Just explain, do you have an idea what h6 is? No. Does it mean g5 later? If the bishop came to f4, maybe? Try and discourage bishop f4s. The bishop remained here. Okay, so b5, you know, accepting an isolated pawn. AB knight takes b6. But this bishop is over here. It's not on here. You know, it's not on this diagonal. So is this pawn an exploitable weakness? That's the question again. You can have these weaknesses, but are they exploitable, these two? Not particularly. Look at the context of the position. You know, these pieces are not that aggressive at the moment. b3, as though maybe, you know, he's going to play this and cement his centre and exchange off bishops. Maybe that's the plan. Knight g4. And white has to be careful about f2. If the rook moves, you know, maybe knight f2 and bishop d4, Tal-like moves might be possible. So bishop b2. But now f5. Okay. So now if e4, there's f4. But actually e3 was played. And here, after the g5, I'm quite excited actually by black's position here, this g5. You know, look at this. And, you know, look at this. Isn't this a really aggressive pawn structure? So white's kind of playing, you know, classical, you know, style, and black is playing sort of Tal style, and there's f4, you know, to try and fracture white's pawns and get at the king, really. So this looks very aggressive, this g5. Okay, rook a1, seemingly not worried about f4. Okay, maybe if f4, just e4 here. So bishop b7, starting to put pressure on d5 now. Rook ae1, rook be8, h3, the knight goes back. And now white lashes out with f4. So knight g6, king h2. Okay, so the bishops are all looking pretty nice in this position. Look at these bishops for both sides. Very hyper-modern position. Double fianchetto bishops for both sides. G takes f4. G takes f4. So is there a slight icy wind here around the white king? These dark squares, can they be exploited? King h7, as though rook g8 might be on the cards, as well as queen h4. This looks dangerous. What's this queen doing here? Look at the queen position. So what do you prefer now, white or black? If I give you 20 seconds to evaluate this position, who do you prefer, white or black? So starting from now. Anyone? Anyone an opinion? Black? Just explain why it's black. Anyone else? I think black looks more dynamic myself. Exactly, you've taken the words out of my head there, Triches. Just as I said them. Triches are right. Black looks more dynamic. That's what we can agree on. That black looks more dynamic. Okay. So knight c4 was played, which seems to improve white's pawn structure. You know, hitting d6, maybe threatening knight a5 to come in, which would stretch the bishop across the fianchetto. So knight takes c4, a lesser evil move. But it seems this is a very solid pawn against the bishop. And the bishop, you know, if it goes there, it's blocked in by its own pawn. But it goes there anyway. Bishop c8. Rook f3. And now, you know, white's maybe planning, you know, g-file pressure. Rook g8, rook g1. Bishop f6. Bishop h1. But now a surprise move for the g-file contest. So these rooks are trying to contest this g-file. Yeah? But now a move from black here improves black's chances considerably. A tactical move. So a very dangerous tactical move. I wonder if you can spot it. What did black play here if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? So there's a nice, seemingly nice move that Nigel Short played here. So can you guess it? 20 seconds starting from now. Well, knight h4 is being prompted by some of you. Knight f4 by someone. Knight h4, you know, I don't think is that effective because rook g3. Yeah? But this other one is a lot more effective. Knight e5. Because it's hitting the rook and c4. And if it takes, then that looks to be quite dangerous. This wasn't played, but takes. Bishop takes e5. Say rook here. You know, maybe takes. Actually, I'm not sure of the refutation here because this queen has also got access to g2 and f2. Queen h4. Also there's knight e2, I don't know. Ah, hang on. Say knight e2. Takes f4. Nope, we can't do f4. Oh dear. So what is going on? After knight e5, oh dear, I should have engine checked this earlier. So bishop takes e5. What does black play here? Is there a clear winning idea that black has? Bishop takes. General T writes bishop takes. Does everyone agree bishop takes or leave the pin? Sometimes you want to celebrate the pin. We've got this pin on g3. Shouldn't we try and celebrate it? We've got queen h4 or rook takes g3. What would you say the best move is here? Rook takes rook. Probably we need to engine check this position, but we can give it a go. I wonder just about taking, you know, just bring the king out. Check. Isn't this dangerous? Because you're threatening queen g1, mate. Rook f4 was better, someone says. After takes, rook f4 is another defense. Yeah. Queen h4? Yeah, this bishop's hemmed in, isn't it, by its own pawn. Was this sound? Does anyone know if this was sound, this knight e5? Was it proven to be sound? Does anyone know? Takes rook f4 looks pretty strong, doesn't it? What is the evaluation, General T? You've looked at it with deep frits. Does it say white's better after rook f4? Is white supposed to be better? That's interesting. I can't see what's going on here because this bishop's not in the attack. It's, you know, it's hemmed in. Ah. Okay, we've got a suggestion from Chess Explains. Take on f4. Take on g1. And now you play queen e1 check. So king here. Ah, what about rook e3 here? Is that a move? Rook e3. Or is that better? Or just rook g8? Now, if knight e2, then queen f2. So, wow. So knight e5 was a turning point in this game. I think black got the advantage now after knight e5. A very tactical but strong move. Okay. So in the game, rook fg3. So we have an exchange of rooks, but now c4's dropped. Won a pawn. Bishop h4. Queen g7. So black's clearly putting pressure all over the place. He's got a dream position. I think black's got a dream position now. Knight e2. But attacking the knight though. So where's this knight going? Goes back to attack d5. And now again, without that pawn there, you know, the d5 is a bit vulnerable. e4. Rook takes. So 2 pawns. Okay, and maybe okay, so this is 2 pawns now. Rook e8. Right, so what is rook e8 doing? What happens if rook takes b6 here? If rook takes b6, what happens here if rook takes b6? Does anyone know? Rook takes b6. Rook takes e2. Ah, yes. For mate. Whoa. Whoa. So this rook is having to defend g3. So bishop f3. Bishop f2. So again, now there's a threat of rook takes and queen g1. Bishop g4. So using that pin on f5. Queen g6. So threatening takes. Now the knight's hanging. Rook takes b6. F takes g4. Hitting the queen. Takes, takes. The knight has to move. It's all pretty sharp, but check first. Now the knight moves. Rook e1. Very complex tactical game. So bishop d2. Rook g1, as though this pawn is now going to be playing g3 check. Check as a defense, because he wants this to take here. Takes. Now, if Nigel had played anything else, you know, maybe what can white do here? Well, anyway, he accepted this tactic. He went in for that. He's the exchange up, and it's not too hard to win this, I think. So he takes that pawn. He's the exchange up. After rook a5, this pawn's dropping as well. So white resigned here. So that was an incredibly dynamic tactical game, with knight e5 being a key move. So let's have a quick overview and summary of that game. And I think we might have to carry on these games next week, actually, because it's been over an hour and we've just only done a few. So maybe we carry on next week on these Gibraltar games. Okay, so this is a very dynamically played Benoni, where h6, queen e7, very aggressive. Now b5, not minding the isolated a pawn. Knight g4, which unblocks this pawn for f5. And also note, if h3, I think there's knight e3 here. Because look, this knight takes, check. So knight h3 wasn't possible, you know, knight e3 looks like a tactic. So bishop b2, protecting c3. So now if e4, we got f4. So g5 renewing the threat maybe of f4 in the future. Yeah, we can look at Shirov games next time and more Hou games. So h3, knight e5, f4. So unfortunately, you know, this h4 is being weakened with this queen soon. So g takes. If e takes, we can get 2 rooks for the queen as well, which would be very nice. 2 rooks for the queen would be adequate, as well as bishop, you know, d4 being dangerous. Maybe in d5, so, you know, 2 rooks for the queen's good. So he wanted to avoid that. But this h4, you know, these weaknesses here now, okay, so are exploited wonderfully pretty soon with the amazing tactical move knight e5. So I think this gave black the advantage, starting to give black the advantage, this knight e5. Very dangerous tactical move. Very dynamically played Benoni, I think, this game. So winning a pawn, and, you know, beautiful position now. 2 pawns with, you know, a threat of rook e2, you know, if in queen g3, if takes, you know, it's on g3. So bishop f3. Still threatening rook takes, and then queen here. Okay. And it's tactical now, so it's just tactical. Queen g6 unpinning the pawn. And this pawn is very dangerous on g4. Very dangerous pawn. So this idea of here and here now. So rook g1. So if the knight dared to move, there's g3 just winning a whole piece. So rook f6 check instead. Okay, accepted. Exchange up, and it's not too hard now. Okay, so amazing games there. So I wonder if we should just carry on Gibraltar next week. I don't think there's a major tournament between now and next week, is there? So perhaps we should savour some of the Gibraltar games for next time. Should we do that? Yeah? Okay. Alright, I hope you got something out of these games so far. And so we'll carry on maybe these Gibraltar games next week. Okay. Thanks very much. Hope you got something from it. Okay, I'm going to stop the broadcasting now. Thanks very much. Until next week.